Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. I'm not sure. We're kind of in between here. I'm looking around the room at my colleagues, and you men and women look a little bit tired. Well, I know I look tired, that's for sure. I just, before we get started, I just want to acknowledge all my colleagues here in the Minnesota House for the long hours and the deep passion that you all bring to the work and the seriousness with which you do it. I said this when we concluded our House Committee a few weeks ago. It really is a pleasure. More than a pleasure, it's really a privilege to work with you all, even though I disagree with a good chunk of you on a number of things. But I never question the level of energy and passion and hard work that you bring to this table and to this body. That's what's expected of us. And you all have really risen to meet that. In particular, I want to do that shout out to the conferees of Senate File 802, because I know firsthand what that meant over the course of the last couple of weeks with weekend meetings, with long hours. I told my wife yesterday, it was the first conversation I had with her in about 3 days, that, you know, it's midnight and it feels early to me right now. So it really is a privilege to work with good, strong Minnesotans who care about our state. I'm really glad that we're coming to the end of this process. For one, I have probably worn a tie more this past week than I have this entire session, and I can't wait to ditch these suckers. But hopefully we'll be able to wrap our work up pretty soon here in the 2019 legislative session. What we're going to do today is to have a walkthrough of the conference committee report, the bill that has been agreed upon that we'll be bringing forward to our respective floors, our respective chambers for passage and eventually for the governor's signature. We're at a point where there's agreement from both bodies and confirmation, a promise that the governor will sign this bill. Nevertheless, it's really important to walk through it publicly so that the public is fully aware of what's in the bill, that the public is fully aware of how the members think and feel about the legislation. And so we're going to spend the first part of this joint meeting together doing a technical walkthrough of both the policy language and the spreadsheet items. From there, I'm going to move into member conversation. And then from there, I'm going to entertain anyone in the public that wishes to offer comment on the bill. Hopefully, we could do that inside of 2 hours and still get everyone home in time for dinner. I do want to acknowledge that this is a joint committee meeting of three committees: the Public Safety, Criminal Justice Reform Committee of the House, the Judiciary and Civil Law Committee of the House, chaired by my colleague John Lesh, and our subcommittee, Public Safety Subcommittee on Corrections, chaired by my good friend, Representative Jack Considine. And so I do welcome members from all three of those committees here today. So with that, I'm going to ask our nonpartisan House staff to take us through the bills. I will, if you wave or signal or whatever, I will call on you. My hope to ask questions, my hope is that At this stage, we're not debating issues as much as we're getting clarity about what's being technically laid out before us. We can have a little bit more of a give and take, if you so desire, a little bit later when we're having comments among ourselves as colleagues. But this first part is really for us and the public to know what is inside the legislation that will be coming forward in special session, both in policy and appropriations and revenue decisions. So with that, I'm going to call on, I believe, Mr. Walsh, you're first. John Walsh, our fiscal analyst in the House. And by the way, members, these three public servants have put in incredibly long hours, including last night. I think one of them finally got to bed at 7 a.m. In the morning. So I just want to acknowledge that right up front and express my deep gratitude for the work that they do to make sure that we very professionally, very concisely put forward for the public the fruits of our labor. So with that, Mr. Waltz.
Mr. Chair, beginning on the first page of the spreadsheet, and I just want to say for folks who might not be familiar with our spreadsheets, the center shaded portion labeled conference agreement is the bill we're discussing. To the left of that, the non-shaded columns are the original House bill, and to the right of that, in the non-shaded columns, are the original Senate bill. So, Mr. Chair, beginning at the beginning, for the courts, both the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, and the District Court, we have funded their inflationary increases for insurance and benefit package needs, as well as 2.5 and 2.5 for employees and judges' salary increases for the biennium. So in the Supreme Court, with those inflationary adjustments included on line 8, the bill also includes $750,000 a year in ongoing money for cybersecurity information technology needs at the Supreme Court. There's also on line 15 a $1 million annual addition in ongoing money for increasing services at civil legal services. Mr. Chair, moving down to the Court of Appeals, just the inflationary salary and benefit package increases. That moves us to the district courts on line 30. On top of the inflationary increases, there is $1,070,000 per year in ongoing money for mandated psychological services. On line 39, and one additional judge unit in the 7th District. And on line 40, $306,000 in ongoing money for treatment court sustainability. This is to sustain 5 treatment courts who have expiring federal grants. Mr. Chair, in line 45, the guardian ad litem, we gave them their operating adjustment inflationary increases, as well as on line 50, $50,000 a year in ongoing money for technology upgrades. And on line 51, $4 million a year increase in ongoing money on an item labeled compliance with mandates. This is to hire several new people for additional guardian ad litem services. Moving on to page 2, the tax court received $125,000 for e-filing and remote helpline. On line 62, the Uniform Laws Commission received $5,000 a year for their request for an inflationary increase. The Board of Judicial Standards received, on line 70, their inflationary increase, and on line 71, $5,000 for an update to their online complaint website. Mr. Chair, moving to the Public Defense Board, they received $12 million for salary increases, $2.1 million for their health insurance needs, and on line 81, they received an additional $3 million a year to hire increased attorneys and support staff. Mr. Chair, on line 82, they also received their request for additional money. It's about $250,000 for the biennium for public defense corporations, and that is ongoing money as well. Mr. Chair, going down to line 88, the Department of Human Rights received their inflationary operating adjustment and money to maintain a civic engagement. I believe this is coordinator. It's one position that was $291,000 for the biennium. In sentencing guidelines, they requested $24,000 for an operating adjustment, and that was granted in the bill. Moving to page 3, the Department of Public Safety. In Homeland Security and Emergency Management, there was $250,000 a year provided to the Minnesota School Safety Center. There was a small amount, $6,000 for some IT enhancement. On line 116, you can see absent, there was $20 million in the House bill for the disaster contingency account. This is funded through a different mechanism in the transportation bill. Mr. Chair, on line 117, supplemental security grants, the House and Senate met midway between each position at $225,000 per year. And on line 118, $340,000 for the Rapidan Township disaster reimbursement. On line 122, in addition to that, $675,000 annual appropriation in 2020 and 2021 from the fire safety account for emergency response team needs. In the BCA, we have 4 additional items that were funded. On line 134, replacement of the automated fingerprint system at $1.5 million per year. $428,000 per year on line 136 for FBI cybersecurity and compliance. On line 138, IT enhancements of $742,000 per year. And on line 140, additional funding for drug agents and forensic scientists at $650,000 per year in ongoing money. Mr. Chair, the fire marshal on line 152 received a small amount of money for IT enhancements of $190,000 per year, and the Board of Firefighter Training continues to receive their base funding from the fire safety account. So, Mr. Chair and members, moving to page 4, gambling and alcohol enforcement. There was no additional funding. They will continue to receive their base funding. The Office of Justice Programs, in addition to their base funding, receive on line 173 the Task Force for Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women, $44,000 for IT enhancements, $34,000 for a criminal sexual conduct working group, and on line 180, $200,000 per year for veterans domestic abuse prevention. Mr. Chair, moving down to emergency communication networks, they received their base funding, some IT enhancements at $395,000 per year, and on 196, there is a new appropriation for 911 dispatcher over-the-phone CPR training. That is $306,000 for the biennium. Mr. Chair, that takes us to page 5 and the post board. The post board funding has been transitioned from a special revenue account to general fund to a general fund appropriation. This was essentially a revenue neutral change, but will hopefully prevent shortfalls for the post board in the future. And in addition to that, they received $100,000 a year for the post board rules coordinator. Mr. Chair, that takes us down to line 237, the Private Detectives Board. On top of their base appropriation, they received $85,000 a year for 1 oversight position. Mr. Chair, that takes us to the Department of Corrections. In the area of institutions, they received an operating adjustment of $22.8 million for the biennium. On line 249, there is $2.8 million a year, $2.8 million in fiscal 2020, $4.8 in 2021, and tails going up to $5.5 million in 2022 and beyond. This will hire up to 67 correctional officers by fiscal 21, and I was given a correction by the Department of Corrections that should read 78 correctional officers, not 77, by fiscal 2023. Mr. Chair, on line 253, some additional money, $2.6 million for the biennium for recruitment and retention of correctional officers. On line 257, $655,000 a year in ongoing money for reinstituting the Ombudsman for Corrections, or ombudsperson. On line 258, the offender healthcare contract money is included. On line 260, there is roughly $800,000 to go from paper health records to electronic health records at the department. On line 263, there is a bed impact for eliminating the voluntary relationship defense in sexual assault cases. On line 265, the bed impact of stiffer penalties for criminal sexual conduct in for persons of authority. On line 267, an increased bed impact for increased penalties on child pornography offenses. And on line 268, the bed impact for penalties for criminal sexual conduct perpetrated on persons in custody. So, Mr. Chair, that takes us to the top of page 6. In community service, the department received their inflationary adjustment, and on top of that, $500,000 a year for juvenile justice reform, FTEs, and juvenile detention alternative grants. Mr. Chair, moving to operations support, the administrative portion of the Department of Corrections, they received their inflationary operating adjustment and $366,000 in fiscal 2020 for critical technology needs. Mr. Chair, moving down to line 328, the Community Justice Reinvestment Account, this is a transfer that occurs by statute that will continue to go to OJP to be spent on some provisions from the Drug Reform Act of a few years ago. And Mr. Chair, that is essentially the provisions outside of, on line 355, there is a $400,000 2019 appropriation for the post-board deficiency. And Mr. Chair, there, in addition to that, there are no cuts or fees in the bill. And so if you look down at the very bottom, line 385, our base is $2.359 billion for the biennium. Our target was $123.6 million above that, and you will see that figure totaled on line 362. Mr. Chair, that completes the walkthrough of the spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Are there any questions for our fiscal analyst? Representative Scott.
Thank you. Let me find the page here, if you would. Chair, thank you. So the human rights, there's 291,000 for one position.
Representative Scott, what line is that on the spreadsheet? I'm sorry.
Let's see. Human rights, where did it go? That's on page 2.
And Representative Scott, while you're looking for that,
93? No.
I'm sorry.
No, that's civil engagement.
Mr. Chair and
Maybe that is it, yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Chair, Representative Scott, the Department of Human Rights had one expiring position, that's the civic engagement position. The 291,000 is a biennial figure. The 134,000 the first year and 157 each year would include salary, benefits, retirement, and any other ancillary costs if this person is traveling throughout the state for reimbursements for mileage or perhaps overnight hotel stays if they work statewide.
And Representative Scott, we do have the commissioner here, so I'll have her address that as well.
That answers the question. And then I think I have another question on page 3, line 140, drug agents and forensic scientists. There's $650 a year, and how many FTEs would that be?
We do have commissioners here, but Mr. Walsh?
Mr. Chair and Representative Scott, I'm not sure. The scientists are I don't want to say extremely highly paid, but they're higher paid than the average FTE in state government. I would imagine this would get you somewhere about four to five people. And this was essentially half of the funding for a governor's ask, I believe, that was previously carried under an opioid proposal. And so it was part of that proposal, and because the opioid proposal went a different way in the legislature, this is funding portions of that ask with general fund money.
Commissioner Harrington.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mariani. There are 5 FTEs that would be accounted for in there. 3 of those are scientists that would be doing drug analysis. There is 1 analyst, crime analyst, and then there is 1 BCA agent that would be funded out of that.
Are there further questions on the spreadsheet? If not, thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm going to turn to the policy provisions in the bill. I'm going to start talking about Article 2. I'm going to do this at a fairly fast pace and high level since everyone has heard these policy provisions, but I will cite a few page numbers as I go along if you want to follow along. Article 2 begins on page 16 of the bill. The first section in Article 2 is the statutory language creating 1 new judge unit in the 7th Judicial District. Sections 2 and 3 are rideshare data provisions. This is language that came from the Senate. It was, however, part of Representative Lesch's civil omnibus bill, which was not heard on the floor. This language expands the private, non-public classification of rideshare data to include programs administered by any government entity, not just the Metropolitan Council. Sections 4 and 5 are conforming changes related to moving the post board to the general fund. Section 6 is an annual transfer to the Community Justice Reinvestment Account. I'm on to page 20 of the bill at this point. Section 7 is the Reduced Cigarette Ignition Propensity Account. This language is an agency provision that expands the use of money in the account to include educational programs. Section 8 is an off-sale license provision. This is another agency provision that requires commissioner approval for issuing licenses to micro distilleries. Section 9 is a disbursement of surcharges by Commissioner of Management and Budget. This is another statutory change related to the move of from the post board to the general fund. Section 10 is access to closed case files. This is from the Judiciary Omnibus Bill, which was included with the Public Safety Omnibus Bill. This allows parties to access non-public human rights investigative data in a closed case file when the charging party files a case in district court. I'm on to page 22 of the bill at this point. Sections 11 and 12 contain provisions related to the 911 CPR, which requires 911 telecommunicators to receive training related to providing CPR instruction over the phone. Section 13 is a data classification provision. It's a conforming change related to the rideshare data bill. Sections 14 through 17 are amended language related to providing compensation for exonerated individuals. I'm on to page 26 at this time. Sections 18 through 22 deal with the change in language for the harassment and stalking offenses. These are considered technical changes. They don't create any new penalties or new crimes. Sections 23 through 26 relate back to the exoneration provisions. And section 27 is another part of the harassment provision. I'm on page 34 at this point. This is the evidence of conduct. This expands the list of admissible domestic conduct evidence to include a violation of a domestic abuse no contact order. Section 29 is the task force on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Section 30 is a revisor instruction related to the change in terminology for the harassment and stalking offenses. And the final section in Article 2 is a repealer. This is repealing a current definition related to rideshare data. That definition is effectively replaced by the new rideshare data language referenced earlier. Mr. Chair, that's the end of the walkthrough for Article 2. If there are no questions, I'll turn it over to Mr. Diebel to walk through the next 3 articles.
Are there any questions for Mr. Johnson? Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not on the Public Safety Committee, but the language regarding this reduced cigarette ignition propensity account, House Research made several notes to, this is an agency provision. Were those agency provisions heard in your committee?
Those are agency provisions, Representative Scott, and we certainly have people from the agency that can answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Chair, were
They were in the
those,
governor's budget? Right.
my question is, were those provisions heard in your committee, or were those added
were-
just yesterday or today?
Yeah, Representative Scott, they were part of the governor's proposal and presentation to our committee.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
They were part of the governor's proposal and presentation by the commissioner to our committee.
So there was no legislative action taken until this moment right now on those provisions?
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair, Representative Scott, this is language that was in the governor's original proposed budget.
Okay.
Chair Mariani did introduce the majority of that language with some changes that he included, but he did adopt in his initial budget bill this language.
Okay.
So this language
That's my
has been
question.
heard in committee.
Thank you, that was my question.
Are there any further questions about the first three articles? Is it 3 or 4 articles? 3 articles? First 2. If not, then Mr. Diebel, you'll pick up where Mr. Johnson left off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin with Article 3, corrections. I'll move through this quickly. There are 4 distinct policies contained in this article. Sections 1, 2, 5 through 11 contain the ombudsperson for corrections, which is a House-only provision. Sections 3 and 4, which begin on page 39, are the provisions from Representative Tabke's bill on regulating security screening equipment in jails and prisons. The House accepted the Senate's higher fee imposed to inspect this equipment. The third provision in the corrections article is in section 12. This is guidance on administrative segregation. This is a House-only provision authored by Representative Zerwas. And the final provision in the corrections article is requiring that same-sex escorts, or modifying the requirement for same-sex escorts of inmate transfers, and that's a House-only provision, again, authored by Representative Zerwas. Mr. Chair, if there are no questions, I'll move to Article 4, sex offenders.
Any questions on Article 3? If not, please continue, Mr. Diebel.
Article 4, sex offenders, begins on page 48 of the proposed bill. Section 1 is a provision that requires the sentencing judge to justify a stay of adjudication in a crim sex conduct case. This is a Senate position, but was contained in the supplemental omnibus bill last year, as well as in Chair Mariani's House File 341 as introduced. Sections 2 through 8 contain the current or recent position of authority language. This is identical in the House and the Senate. The Senate did not accept the House's position on school employees, however. Sections 7 and 8 contain the provisions on crim sex conduct involving peace officers and persons they are detaining. The House and the Senate both had positions on this with only minor technical differences. The House accepted the Senate's version. Section 9, which is on page 58, is the provision repealing the exception to fifth-degree crim sex conduct for touching another person's buttock with sexual intent. That was identical in the House and the Senate positions. Section 10 is a Senate-only provision that permits or requires law enforcement agencies to accept a statement or a request for an investigation from a victim of criminal sexual conduct, regardless of whether the offense took place in the law enforcement agency's jurisdiction. If the offense did not occur in the agency's jurisdiction, they are required to refer it to the appropriate agency. They are also, under this provision, required to give the victim a summary of the statement or request that the victim provided to the agency. Section 11 is a Senate-only provision increasing penalties for certain surreptitious intrusion violations to a felony. This again was also included in last year's supplemental omnibus finance bill. Sections 12 through 18 relate to child pornography. The House had a position on the similar statutes and amendments, but the House accepted the Senate's version, which again were identical to the provisions that were contained in last year's supplemental omnibus bill. Section 20 requires law enforcement agencies to adopt criminal sexual conduct or criminal sexual assault investigation policies modeled after the Post Board's model policy on that topic. The Senate and the House both had positions on that. The House accepted the Senate's version. Section 21 is the Criminal Sexual Conduct Reform Working Group, which is a House-only provision authored by Representative Moeller. Section 22, and the final section of the Article 4, directs the sentencing guidelines to examine CSC provisions and assess whether they're appropriately ranked in their sex offender grid, and that is identical language in the House and the Senate. Mr. Chair, if there are no questions, I'd move on to Article 5.
I'm wondering, Mr. Debo, if you can go back over Section 5 and tell us what that is again. I believe, Representative Mueller, this is your provision, or language that you worked on.
You're correct, Mr. Chair. I did skip over. There's one other provision, House-only provision, that relates to a Supreme Court case that interpreted criminal sexual conduct in the first degree in a way that was inconsistent with how practitioners had been applying the statute, and the Senate accepted the House's proposed fix to that statute, which again was authored by Representative Mueller. I apologize for the oversight.
Oh, it's quite all right. And Representative Mueller, was this something that you and Representative O'Neill also worked on, or is this from a different source?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did work on it. I believe Representative O'Neill was a co-author on that bill as well. I can't quite remember. She and I worked together on a lot of these provisions, and I think she was on that one.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, by the way. Thank you, Mr. Debo. Any further questions? If not, please continue.
Mr. Chair and members, on page 71, Article 5, predatory offenders, this is an article that was contained largely in the House's omnibus bill. There was an agreement struck between the House, the Senate, and the agency to modify the article that the House brought in, and it is reflected in the Article 5. The base of this document was contained in House File 1955, which was proposed by the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension's Predatory Offender Office. And the changes, again, were all agreed to with 3 exceptions. The language reflects what was in the agency's bill. The one exception is Section 7, which is a standalone bill on notice to home care providers or home health care providers when a predatory offender is present, and that was carried both in the House and the Senate and is contained again in Section 7. Another provision that was not in the agency's bill is Section 11, which requires law enforcement to provide notice when an offender moves out of their jurisdiction, just as they had when the offender moved into the jurisdiction. This is a Senate-only provision that the House accepted. And then the final provision that was not contained in the agency's proposal is a requirement that a person who violates the new proposal or the new crime of felony surreptitious intrusion would be required to register as a predatory offender under this proposed bill. Mr. Chair, that concludes my overview of Article 5.
Very well. Any questions? If not, then Mr. Johnson, I think you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members, I'm going to walk through Article 6. This article deals with vehicle operations, contains 4 policy provisions. Sections 1 and 2 are language that was in the House Omnibus Bill and also in the Senate's DWI Omnibus Bill. This further conforms off-road DWI provisions to motor vehicle DWI laws. Section 3 of this article expands the first-degree DWI provisions to include a prior offense from another state. On page 89, there's an exception. This is Senate language. This language was in the Senate's DWI Omnibus Bill. It was authored by Senator Johnson. This particular provision was proposed by Senator Latz. There was a comparable provision in the House that Representative Lesh carried. This language would exclude vehicles from forfeiture proceedings following a DWI when the driver enters the ignition interlock program. Mr. Chair, the final 2 sections which appear on page 91 are the license reinstatement diversion program. Currently, it is a pilot program. This eliminates the pilot program but makes it a statewide program at this time. Mr. Chair, that's all of Article 6. I can move briefly to Article 7.
Any questions on Article 6? Please continue, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair, Article 7 is the article relating to firefighters. This is essentially a technical article. It amends several definitions, slightly changes some licensing requirements, and some provisions related to reciprocity standards for firefighters coming from other states or from the military into Minnesota. Mr. Chair, that ends the walkthrough of the omnibus bill.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any questions? All right. Well, again, I want to acknowledge the incredibly high-quality, good work, long hours work that Mr. Johnson, Mr. Debo, and Mr. Walls have provided the committees this legislative session and for the crazy hours and energy, particularly over the course of the last couple of weeks. With that, members, what I want to do at this stage is 2 things. One, first, I want to have a conversation, or I want to open it up for conversation among members. I do have some comments I want to shape up, and so I'll get us going, but you can certainly not follow my format if you have something else that you want to be able to share with the public. And then after that, I'd like to ask anyone in the public to come forward and offer any thoughts on the bill that's going to be moving forward. So, Representative Johnson, you have a question?
Chair Mariani, one thing going through, I've been digesting this since it just became available not too long ago. I noticed there's a lot of FTEs in this bill. Some of them are good, some of them not sure. I'm just wondering if we could get a breakdown of the total numbers of full-time employees we're adding with this bill.
Representative Johnson, we can certainly do that. It's an appropriate question. So with that, members, let me offer my thoughts and then turn over to Chair Lesh and Chair Considine as well, and would invite others to join in. First of all, let me just say that I was, and still am particularly proud of the House bill that this body produced. I thought that it met some pretty big, important objectives, and it was guided by some really strong principles and visions. First and foremost, like all our bills, guided by a duty for having responsible government. And responsible government involves properly funding our state agencies. It also reflected, in my opinion, a belief that government, the people's government should always be open to and embrace change. And change that, quite frankly, is about doing things not only differently, but smartly, effective, and fair. The other thing that these bills reflected was a strong commitment to bipartisanship. There were a number of bills throughout all three of the committees that involved the work of members from both sides of the aisle, sometimes actually working together on the same bill. I'm thinking, for instance, of Representative Long and Representative Hertaus's collateral consequences bill. And there were bills that enjoyed authorship from both sides of the aisle as well. The broad themes, at least in mostly, I'll speak to public safety, were broad themes in the House bill of sexual assault reform issues, decriminalizing poverty, probation reform work that advances redemptive opportunities for offenders, intervention work so that we don't have offenders in the first place, a lot of fairness related to court traffic fines and fees. I stole a little bit from Representative Lush there. And as I said earlier, responsible funding for our agencies. The bill met some of that, and there's sprinkled throughout a number of what I think are often bipartisan, but certainly always good proposals here. The investment in our properly staffing our facilities, our state prisons, is a big change from in my opinion, from the lack of attention to that issue that we've had over many years. I'm sure Representative Considine, if he speaks, Chair Considine, will share just how critically important it was for this body, legislature, to travel to one of our state prisons and actually held the first ever in the history of the state formal legislative hearing at a state correctional facility. The investment in the missing and murdered Indigenous women task force, which enjoys strong bipartisan support, the return of the ombudsperson's office that we lost close to 2 decades ago and was nation leading, the criminal sexual crimes of sexual assault work group, and a number of initiatives addressing criminal sexual assault. The even small things like the CPR, 911 CPR work that constantly strives to find new ways to fill gaps where we can keep people safe. The investment in the public defender, the guardian ad litem, Representative Zerwas's work of many years related to solitary confinement and addressing mental health issues in particular, and reform in that area is an incredibly just approach and addresses an issue that should never have been there in the first place, and did enjoy good, strong bipartisan support. And the stabilizing the pulse board funding by moving them to the general fund and addressing this year's deficiency, which ran north of $400,000. There were that's how I roll, man.
He is bad to the bone.
Yes. I do believe that there, of course, were a lot of things that fell off the table, and there always is in these conference committees. It doesn't make it any less disappointing, knowing that there always is, and are worth mentioning. We had 3 provisions on probation reform. We moved on none of them. There is incredible broad sector bipartisan support across the nation and even in our state on this issue. I've been kind of perversely bragging that for the first time ever, this left of center legislator distributed an ALEC letter of support on the House floor immediately followed by a similar letter from the ACLU. I think it really speaks to the vision that's coming from the people of our state and our nation. There were a number of provisions around decriminalizing poverty. I suspect Representative Lesh can speak to those traffic fine justice issues. There were a number of intervention investments. We didn't invest in YIPA as much as we set out to do, and yet interacting with young people is one of the strongest things that we can do to prevent crime and to build strong communities. There were a number of alternatives to incarceration, again, from both sides of the aisle. That are not in this bill. One that was in last year's bill or the year before. Alternatives to incarceration for those who are struggling with drug addiction and mental health, and combining mental health services with probation oversight, addressing this, the reality that mental health, mental illness is a key variable in crime in our state, and therefore in avoiding crime if we address it. And then a number of police integrity issues, a task force looking at employment relationships that make it difficult for those who manage police officers to be able to do that consistently in a high-quality way that continues to maintain the public's trust. A database related to also providing objective empirical information for the public to maintain its trust with our police, because you can't have safety without that kind of trust, and not extending the sunset for the investment that we're making currently in peace officer training across the state. The House was the only body that took a position that we needed to continue to make that investment beyond the next biennium. That fell off the table. Rest assured, members, at least from this chair, that falling off the table doesn't mean it falls off the face of the earth. We certainly will assertively, even throughout the interim, continue to work on addressing these issues involving all stakeholders and putting a challenge right back to the Senate to quit kicking the can down the road, quit ignoring reality, quit pretending to care about something, and then hold no hearings, and then hold the fact that they held no hearings as an excuse for taking no action. I think the people of Minnesota deserve better than that. We know they do, and we certainly intend to hold our colleagues in the Senate accountable for that. The Senate bill also incredibly severely underfunded our courts, our corrections, our public safety. Quite frankly, members, their bill, as it came off the floor of the Senate, was plain old irresponsible. Don't quote me, quote the chair, my counterpart, who chairs the Public Safety Committee in the Senate. He called it a dereliction of our constitutional obligation to meet our judiciary, the need to have a decent, functional judiciary, as well as addressing public safety. I suppose, members, it was a bargaining position. I find it, I can't even come up with the word. It's unconscionable is a good, safe word to come up with it. This body, the House, doesn't play those games. I don't care if it's my colleagues across the aisle or us. We believe in meeting our obligation to take care of our judiciary properly and our public safety and corrections system. And I am proud to say that this bill, because of our efforts, because of, frankly, my leadership's efforts in the House, dragged the Senate to do the right thing and make the right investments in our judiciary corrections and our public safety divisions. We have a court that will be decently, strongly funded. We have a public defender system that will be strongly funded as a result of that. We have a correction system that will be able to be closer to maintaining human decency and safety as a result of the House's investment and how we drag the Senate to meet us on making those investments. So there's a lot to be proud of, members, on this bill, even as there were lots of things that were taken off the table. And I believe that what the House has done is laid out a clear, assertive posture that there's a foundation for change that drives hope, that has a vision for being smarter, more effective, saving, frankly, us money, and that places the community at the center of public safety. And it is my commitment to continue to push for that, to push the Senate to act, and to work with our executive branch to make that happen. My final word on this, members, has to do with the gun safety provisions that the majority in this body put on the table in this division and in this bill. Of course, there was no agreement on that. There was a vote in conference committee. It was the one public vote that we had. Quite frankly, the Senate, whenever they had the gavel, didn't meet, except for the very first meeting to get us going. But at one of our meetings, the House meeting, because we met always except for one day, they put forward a motion, and on a vote of 4-1 with the House in favor and 1-4 with the Senate opposed, we were not able to put House File 8 or 9 into this bill before us. We can have, and we have had, an honest debate and disagreement on this issue. It's been my goal as the chair of the House committee to create a respectful space where we can have a full airing out respectfully all sides of this issue. We're going to continue to do that because gun safety debates belong in a public safety committee. And so, you know, this issue is not going to go away. The public won't let it go away. And they have all sorts of good reasons for that. So with that, members, I certainly intend to sign the conference committee report. I would encourage my colleagues to do the same. Chairman Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the first speeches, retirement speeches I heard on the House floor in 2003 was Rich Stanek, who chaired this committee up until 2003, and then he was appointed shortly Public Safety Commissioner. And so when you're fresh and you remember those first speeches, especially retirement speech, and that's why it was so early, because he got appointed immediately after the election of Governor Pawlenty. And his first words were, public safety is a core function of government. You cannot skimp on it. You cannot negotiate on it in the same way that you do everything else, all your other wants. It's an absolute have to have. And I remembered this statement repeatedly during my service here. And that's this entire committee, Public Safety and Judiciary. I chair the Judiciary Committee, and my heart is with the Judiciary and the entire justice system overall because of my experience, 15 years as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, having tried cases on both sides. The due process on both sides is important to me. And the Judiciary especially is critical because one example, there's a famous case, Supreme Court case, called Republican Party of Minnesota versus White. And principle is there was a Supreme Court candidate, Greg Russell, who was running back in 2000, who wanted to put forward political positions and was restricted by the canons from putting that forth so that the judiciary could be impartial. And the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court on a 5-4 decision said, well, you know what? we're going to lean in favor of free speech instead of an independent judiciary. I was struck by the decision at the time for a specific reason, but incidentally, a few years later, Sandra Day O'Connor, former Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who retired after that decision, questioned her vote on that. And if she would have flipped, it would have been decided the other way. And the reason for that is anyone who's done any world travel in this room knows that the foundation and basis for a free society is an independent judiciary, an independent and impartial judiciary. That's where you get your freedoms from there. Free speech is incredibly important, absolutely. But if you cannot count on getting a fair shake from the system, the justice system, things start to fall apart corollarily. And so that's why I too am proud of the bill that we initially put together. I really would have liked to have maintained the 3.5 and 3.5 for the judiciary in the governor's initial budget proposal. I further would have liked to have paid a lot closer attention to the public defender's budget because they are a crucial part of the justice system. And as an office that handles 2/3 of criminal cases statewide, that is a substantial chunk of the folks in our state who are deciding whether or not they got a fair shake when they get processed through the justice system. Now, we have a lot of other bills that we put in our omnibus bill that were not taken up that also go toward whether or not people feel like they're getting a fair shake. And that's the House File 10, Representative Muller's sexual harassment definition. Clear cut, passed nearly unanimously, bipartisanly last year. The Senate wouldn't take it up. The Senate refused to deal with it this year too. Logan's Law. It's legal to get married if you're two women in this state, and yet you're not given the same rights as a spouse if you're two women as if you're a man when a child's born. Logan's Law, that was Representative Cantrell. Forfeiture Task Force. Everyone since the gang strike force has agreed that we need to take a serious look at forfeiture. We had agreement on both sides, including a compromise position from the House and the Senate and the administration. It was surreptitiously dispensed with. The various agency bills that also were very important for people getting a fair shake. Driver's license suspensions. Remember that in 2003, 2005, 2007, we kept on stacking fees on top of poor people. Representative Zerwas carried this bill last year. I was the second author. Now I'm the first, and he's the second. Bipartisan agreement on this. That if you get processed through the system because you lose your license, you didn't even know it, you get a driving after suspension, we ought to be able to give you a chance to get your license back without getting into that cycle of poverty. Both House File 1060 and 1061 would have taken care of that. We had agreement on 1061 with the Senate. That's out. It's gone. Number one, I think the positive things that we have here are that limiting the forfeiture with ignition interlocks. That's the whole point of keeping the roads safe. Protecting the unredacted data in the closed cases for human rights is important as well. But members, repeatedly, we've heard concerns about bumping up against intransigence with folks that aren't doing their job and hearing the bills in the Senate. You all sat around this table or tables over in the SOB, hearing person after person after person approach that table and tell us why they needed to change to get a fair shake at justice. Now, I did not necessarily agree with every single bill that was in our omnibus bill. Okay, I know the Republicans didn't agree with every single one, okay? But the fact is that those people got heard, and we tried to reach a consensus with the committee and put those in. We did our job by hearing them. We probably could have done even more if we had stayed up till 3 a.m. every night hearing people, because God knows there's enough people in Minnesota to tell their stories about why they need a fair shake, okay? The Senate didn't do their job. They just didn't. They went home early to watch Murder, She Wrote, or whatever it is they show. They didn't stick around. They didn't hear the bills. They didn't give it due consideration. They didn't debate it. They just didn't take it up. And members around this table know that's true no matter who's in charge over there. So I think it's time, especially for the interest groups here who have righteously pled for their cases to be heard, we will continue to hear you. We will continue to press on the Senate to do the same. But the Senate is the weakest link. We need to work on that. I feel positive about the positives that we've gained out of this bill, but I'm disappointed that we couldn't do more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Lesh. Chairman Considine.
Thank you, Chair Mariani. I hate following those two eloquent speakers. I'll be a little briefer. I believe at the beginning of the session, we were handed a number of systems that were in crisis, and we have done a job together to triage the greatest needs. Our little subcommittee, I think, worked really well together. I would say that we did not have a weak link in that subcommittee. You'll see that there's Representative Zerwas's bill to gather information on segregation. There is the Ombudsman bill that is in there that frankly Representative O'Neill helped a great deal in crafting, even if it does have my name on it. And then there was the Correctional Officers bill. We saw a great deal of leadership from Representative Christensen, Tapke, Wolgamont. Representative Poston was a contributing member. That was actually a pleasure to chair. We did have some, what I would call first steps, the bills that I just mentioned. I think there's a slight improvement in the public defender's position. It's not where it needs to be. There is a provision in there that does, oh, Katrina, what's your letters? Yeah, that one. They get to expand a little bit, which anytime we're intervening when kids are younger is a very positive outcome. I mean, it pretty much agreed that it's about a 10-to-1 payback. There were a couple of other provisions that I'm, pleased that got forward, but it's a first step, and we need to continue to move forward. My committee will have some field trips this summer where we're going to continue to look into what some of the needs are in corrections. But people need to stay engaged, and people need to pay attention to the process, because that's where we're stumbling. And I would encourage everybody to stay involved and to continue to work at it. I am extremely proud of the work that we did get done, and we will continue to look at ways to improve things. I'll just mention one group that when we went back and had the focus groups, it just continued to hit me between the eyes that we had never even considered anything for people that are lifers. And again, how do you expect people to follow the rules, to have, to treat the custody staff decently if they don't have anything in their own life to look forward to have any goals? We need to find some meaning for these people. And I'm not talking about letting them out, but I'm talking about within the walls, that they have some things that they can work for and that they have some goals. And to be honest, I don't have an idea right now. We'll need to find something that we can do for them. We need to improve education and vocational training. There is one other little provision I would like to mention, and then I'll stop. As I said, I'd be brief. Stillwater is going to be doing a peer-to-peer counseling, checking in for custody staff. We did get the thing back from the OLA, and right now it's somewhere between 11 years and 14 years less of a life expectancy if you are a custody officer. Your job should not come with a death sentence. And depending on a couple of figures, it was either 67 or 70 when the outcome for most Minnesotans is 81. We need to address that, and at some point, I think we're going to need to put a little more money and effort into maybe a clinician or a team that can address some of the issues that arise when you're in custody staff. When you walk through the door and that door slams behind you, you are in danger. And the stress, the anger, the anxiety kills these people, and we need to help address that. With that, I think I will stop.
Thank you, Chair Considine. I appreciate the chairmanship of both Chair Lush and Chair Considine this year, and I've really enjoyed the close coordination between these three bodies. I think our best policy work happens when there's broad or strong communication and strong collaboration among our respective committees. Representative Johnson, the Republican lead on our Public Safety Criminal Justice Reform Committee.
Chair Mariani, members. One thing on this committee, it's always been, this is my 7th year of the Public Safety Committee. And one thing that we've always strived for is for the safety of the public, the citizens of Minnesota. And the years I've been on this committee, we generally put together a very good bill. Generally, it's a bipartisan bill with every member's voting, just about all the members on the committee voting for it. And I will agree with some of the statements already made that the Senate sometimes doesn't hear a lot of bills. But I also do know that we have 3 committees to their 1. So they're doing 3 times the work. They do the Judiciary, Public Safety, and Civil Law and Data Practices all in one committee. So they do have a lot more on their plate than we do. So we have the ability to hear more bills. But I also want to remember, if you remember the statute that represents justice. Justice is blind. It doesn't look at things, it hears things and tries to make sure it's equal. And that's what we try to do on here as well, representing the victims and the perpetrators and trying to make sure it's done fairly and to the right standard. Overall, I'm disappointed in some things that are not in the bill that when it left the House floor. One of the things that Representative or Chair Considine talked about is what's going on in our prison. And part of the issue with that we're dealing with is the assaults. We're adding more staff. That doesn't take place for almost another year before they're up and running. We don't have any short-term solutions. It's very limited on what the legislature can do for short-term solutions on this assaulting our staff, but I thought we had a pretty good one in our bill when it left. Unfortunately, it's not here. We also have an issue with the DMT labs. Those are very toxic labs that same type of chemicals and stuff that are used for the meth labs. And unfortunately, that's not in this bill. And that's a huge cost to our counties and our cities when they run across them. They can tens of thousands of dollars to do that cleanup. But there again, unfortunately, it's not in the bill. I believe overall the bill is much better than when it left here. But like I say, there's still some things missing that I wish we could have done. But overall, the bill is much better, and I appreciate it. I want to thank the nonpartisan staff In the last 3 days, I think they've averaged about 4 hours of sleep every 2 days. So they've done fabulous work, and they've been doing great work all year long, and I really appreciate the work that they do. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. Representative Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would like to first thank you for your leadership of this committee over the past year. I think we've done excellent work, and some of that work is reflected in this bill. I'm proud that Representative Moeller's Sexual Assault Task Force, or working group, is in there. I'm proud that we have the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Task Force in there. Proud of our increases to public defender budgets. I am disappointed that some of the provisions that we worked hard on aren't in there, and I just wanted to speak to one of those, which is the probation reform provision. This was a provision that had bipartisan support in the House, and I want to thank Representative Zerwas for his support of that provision on the conference committee. We had testimony in committee from both progressive and conservative groups in support of the bill. It's not very often I get invited to talk on conservative AM radio, but I was on this bill because there was such strong support among the conservative community. The Senate author was Senator Chamberlain. We negotiated an agreement on this bill with the county attorneys. So we had a bill that was bipartisan, that had liberal and conservative outside group support, and that had county attorney and public defender support. And it's hard for me to imagine a bill like that reaching objection, but it did in the Senate. And that's, I think, a disappointment to me and a disappointment to the many folks who are trying to reform our probation system in Minnesota, which is out of step with the rest of the country. And so I'm hopeful that we can continue to educate the Senate about the real issues that are here. They did not hear the bill. I'm glad that we were able to have it heard during the conference committee process. But it is incredibly frustrating to me that there was such broad support and on that bill, and that we weren't able to get it over the finish line this year. I am hopeful that the Sentencing Guidelines Commission can take up the issue and take a look at it in the interim, and hopefully that can come back and inform the legislature next year so that we can get this done this session. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your work this year, Representative Long. Representative Zerwas.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, and thank you to the Speaker for appointing me to the conference committee. It was interesting.
Diplomatic word.
I was on the conference committee 2 years ago as well. That was also interesting. I'm going to say kind of a couple process comments that might sound disconnected, but I think it's important that both positions are highlighted. First off, I have to start out with a huge thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the DFL caucus, to you. Throughout this entire process, as one of the 5 House conferees, you included myself, our partisan research staff, as part of the House team. And so when people asked me where the heck I was going for all these meetings the last 2 weeks, and I was in, oh, I'm going to the DFL Public Safety Conference huddle. They kind of like, what in the heck are you doing, Zerwas? And so I think, quite frankly, having us meet as a House conferee team and prep for that process together and work through that process together was unbelievably beneficial. Certainly to me, who didn't have the luxury of sitting on the Public Safety Committee throughout the process and only being on the Corrections Subcommittee. And so I think that process was certainly very, very helpful and kind to me, to include you, or include me in your broader team. I do want to juxtapose that inclusion, Mr. Chair, to what we've seen here at the Capitol since beginning the last day of session and since, when the Game of Thrones style conclave began meeting in the governor's cabinet room, and the group of the Speaker, the Senate Majority Leader, the governor, cabinet members, and commissioners, and you and Senator Limmer, Chair Limmer, for the Judiciary Public Safety portion of that. I think I would be remiss if I didn't point out, Mr. Chair, just how against every single thing that your majority talked about coming into this session, that process was. I think if you look at the House bill that the majority passed off, and you look at the final product, and I told people that two branches of government were in secret meetings to negotiate this. Guess which one wasn't there? It wouldn't take long for people to figure out that in the meeting, in the leadership conclave, the legislature was there, the administration was there, but the judicial branch was not there. And so I think I just need to point that out and put that on the record. I think I've only heard through bits and pieces and stories, some lore of what occurred in the meeting, and throughout the negotiation process that followed. It's my understanding that some provisions that were accepted by both Senate Republicans and House Democrats were then struck from the deal by the governor or the administration, the executive branch. This process sets up something that we do not have in the state of Minnesota or the Minnesota Constitution, and that is providing the governor of the state a line item veto on policy provisions. That does not exist in Minnesota, and it was executed in Minnesota over the last few days on specific policy provisions during the closed-door negotiations. That's troubling. It's concerning, and I think I would be remiss without saying that. Now, all of that about process being said, Mr. Chair, there is a lot to be very happy about within this bill, and a bill that I believe takes really some of the best ideas from Republicans and Democrats and brings it forward. I specifically and purposefully want to mention, of course, the solitary confinement reforms, which I've been working on for the last 3 years. And I have to say that in my very first meeting with the new Corrections Commissioner, Commissioner Schnell, he immediately came on board as a partner to get this done. And Commissioner Schnell and his staff worked really hand in hand with me to help this, get this over the finish line. And so I do owe a huge debt of gratitude to the Commissioner and the Department of Corrections for helping get that accomplished. The Representative Johnson bill for the fire safety account, $400,000 for domestic abuse prevention grants for veterans. Also, a Representative Johnson bill, Representative Grossel's, portions of Representative Grossel's bill around sex offenders is in there. My same-sex prisoner transport guideline changes. There are the Representative News changes on TWI. There are a lot of things within this bill to be very proud of. Mr. Chair, I'm honored to have been able to serve on the conference committee with you. My only hope in the time that I'm in the legislature and then we go forward, it's been, Mr. Chair, it's been 4 years, and I've been on conference committee every year. It's been 4 years since I've been in a conference committee where we did a crazy thing, Mr. Chair. We talked about policy, we offered amendments, and we moved provisions, and we voted on them. We voted on them and accepted provisions or declined provisions in a public meeting, and we put a bill together and we moved forward. This isn't a Republican problem. This isn't a Democrat problem. This is an institutional problem. The way this bill is put together and the way every other funding bill this biennium has been put together is an absolute shame. It does a huge disservice. I represent 35,000 people in Elk River and Big Lake. And over the last 5 days, as people have contacted me or my office about what's in bills, what's out of bills, what's still alive, and what's dead, I've had the embarrassing situation of emailing them back and saying, out of 201 legislators, I'm now one of the 3 or 4 that has the purview to know that right now. That is inherently not how this was designed to work. I say this, Mr. Chair, not as a condemnation on you or your leadership or how you ran your conference committee. I say this because this, in this time leading up to whenever special session we'll have, is my only time to say it on the record. If this counts as the record, because this actually isn't a real meeting, Mr. Chair. This is a super secret get-together. But I think it's recording. So, Mr. Chair, there's a lot to be proud of in this bill. Mr. Chair, I will, when we come together, I will be voting for this bill. It's a good bill. I'm proud to vote for it, and I support it. We're not going to get a conference committee report because I don't know how the heck you're going to put this together, but it won't be through a conference committee. It's why I won't have a conference committee report to sign. But I will be voting for this bill. I think the end product is something that we can be proud of and that we can support. I know we talk, there's old sayings about making laws and making sausages. Mr. Chair, I would advise all my friends, do not eat that sausage. The way these bills were put together, it is not good for us. It is not good for the institution. It is not good for the state of Minnesota. It's not good for the people we represent. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Representative Searles. Your presence on the conference committee enriched me personally, and I would dare say also enriched our conference committee deliberations. It is refreshing when we get the conference committee to do it a certain way where, it's really about the House versus the Senate, which is appropriate. It's appropriate to have that competitive, not competitive, but that competing, mixing of ideas. and proposals. And I think, as Republicans and Democrats in the conference committee, we embraced that more than we embraced our partisanship, which we engage in the course of the year, which is also not inappropriate, quite frankly. I would say very quickly that we were the only side, the House, in that conference committee that actually posted our offer publicly. Our first offer was posted publicly. And we were the one body that consistently met. There was one day we didn't meet, but we met every day otherwise. And they were long meetings where we had the public fully engaged in testimony. The Senate only had one meeting, never engaged the public in that meeting. I think there's lots of room for reform. I think we can agree on that. I would look forward to you and folks on your side of the aisle to join me and folks on our side of the aisle to push our leaders to create stronger, better ways to wrap up our sessions. I think if enough of us do that, we may be successful, because I do share, some of the concerns and call for that. The only other quick thing I would say is that per our Constitution, it really only requires the executive and legislative branch to put together a state budget. It's the agreement between the House, the Senate, and the executive branch that produces a budget. It's not the expectation or the responsibility of the judiciary to do that. Obviously, all stakeholders should be engaged in the process. I would never differ with that. But I just do want to remind us of, what our structure is, which is it's executive and the legislative branch that's required to come to agreement in order for us to have a budget. And quite frankly, in order for us to have any law. So with that, thank you, Representative Zerwas. Representative Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm sitting here frustrated, I think, in many ways, like a lot of folks are. And it's not because of what's in the bill, it's really because of what's not in the bill. And I will acknowledge that this bill does move us forward, but it doesn't even catch us up to where the public is. We're trailing the public on a lot of these issues, whether it's probationary terms, whether it's restoring the vote for those individuals who have been convicted of felony crimes or other types of what I would say are significant public safety issues. Chair Lesh, you talked about a fair shake. I think there are a lot of people left out of that fair shake in this bill. And I think we need to continue to work to make sure that the fair shake is applying to those who are the ones that struggle amongst us, not the ones of us that are just successful and doing well. I really am, I don't know how we leave $1.6 million in this biennium on the table. If we would have adopted reducing marijuana thresholds, and if we'd adopted veterans restoration justice, that would have brought $1.6 million back into this budget that we could have used to help make our community safer and better the lives of so many Minnesotans. And that number nearly doubles in the next biennium to $2.9 million. Why would we do that? I don't know. It's just mind-boggling. And these weren't things that were controversial. Matter of fact, the marijuana thresholds, reducing them, was something that was supported by the county attorneys. I mean, these are the people that prosecute crimes. So we're going to continue to lock up individuals for crimes that we have determined are not in the best interest of the community, yet the impact of personal safety is either non-existent or minimal at best. So Nick brought up Game of Thrones, and I think like the Game of Thrones season finale, this is a bit of a disappointment.
Don't spoil it.
Some of us may have not caught up yet, right? Yeah, got it. Yeah. Representative Miller. Thank you, Representative.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Zerwas, I think what you had said was extremely good and almost a mic drop sort of moment, so I'm going to save a lot of what I was going to say for the House floor. I do want to just, what's that? Just stop right now. I don't want to talk much, but I'll talk anyway, right? No, but Mr. Chair, you know, there's been a lot of thanks to you and how you guys ran the committee, and it's justified. You know, coming into this committee, first time in the minority for me, you know, issues that are brought to this committee, you know, my defenses were up. I was prepared for things, and I think the relationship that we had through this session is reflective of what really went on in this. I mean, I kind of jokingly said Representative Dean and I agreed on 2 bills in one day, I believe. And you may not see that again, but we got to know each other through this process. And I guess what I want to point to is the people of our district, they say it a lot of different ways. You know, you need to learn to work together, you need to compromise. They fundamentally think their government isn't working right for them. And I think that's a fair criticism in a lot of ways. And I'd like to think that what happened with this committee, you know, there were some things that were very partisan and there were proposals that were very partisan, but the process was very nonpartisan. And I think it's reflective of what's even ending up in this. I know good compromises when everyone's kind of unhappy with a bill, and that's what we're looking at. But I would like to think that kind of the, if you will, the journey that I've taken through, and maybe all of us in this committee have taken through this session, is an example of how it can work. And I mean that sincerely. And I think you in leadership need to take a lot of credit for that. But I think the individual members in this room on issues, when you talk about public safety, you're going to have very partisan beliefs. And we saw those in some of the bills, but there's going to be very strong beliefs even on the same issues. But there is a great level of respect that has been in this room and has grown over this session. And so I want to thank everyone in this room probably for that. I am excited that there's something, you know, Representative Miller and Mueller, they got us confused. I don't know how, but that was confused. But I think it's ironic that the two that are close in name, different in parties, but, you know, one of the things that we settled at the end, I'm very proud that we got that. We're going to look at sexual crimes in a different way, and hopefully we can make some changes. So I just want to make sure that people really do appreciate that this committee, I do think, in the end, reflected some of the things that people back home are hoping to get from all of us. We're going to disagree at times, but we did it with respect and with the intent to achieve a common goal. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Representative Miller. You know, one of my observations of the Public Safety Committee, which I'm more intimately connected to, obviously, as being privileged to chair it, was that many times our work was expressed and arose from our personal experiences. And there were several members who shared in a vulnerable way what those were. And I appreciate your willingness to engage at that level of trust, but there were many others in the committee as well. And I like to think that good public policy comes from that that level of engagement. So thank you for contributing to that this year. And I look forward to our dinner together. I'm still going to hold you to that. Is there anyone else? Representative Mueller. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and yes, thank you to the members of both committees. I've served on 2 of the 3 committees here, and I've enjoyed really working with all of you, even when we haven't agreed on certain issues. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the people who came forward to testify in our committees and acknowledge some things. I know you did that, Mr. Chair, and I just too want to just a shout out to those who came forward and acknowledging those things that didn't make it to the finish line this year, and then some of those that did. With the gun bills, I want to thank especially those who came forward and testified at our committee who lost loved ones to gun violence and parents whose children are traumatized by lockdown drills. And your advocacy really makes a difference, and I hope that you will continue on as we work for reform. With respect to your bill, Mr. Chair, on the post-conviction relief reform, the advocates that were working on that bill really were working on behalf of those who had some sudden and unexpected impacts by federal immigration law. And the advocates that worked on that bill worked tirelessly to make compromises. They made a lot of compromises, and I'm sorry that we couldn't get that to the finish line too, but I really hope that they continue to work with other groups in future years. The statute of limitations bill, Representative Gomez's bill, and the survivors who really explained to us how sexual assault is a crime that silences victims, and the need to eliminate the statute of limitations in sexual assault cases. I hope that the survivors won't give up, and I really want to thank them for coming forward and bravely testifying at our committee. Similarly, the sexual harassment bill, we heard from Amy, who was a victim of sexual harassment in the workplace, who wasn't able to get her day in court. And when the Senate had the gavel in conference committee, they said that a priority was making sure that people had their day in court. Well, Amy and a lot of victims of sexual harassment don't get their day in court. And this body agreed with the sexual harassment bill in large bipartisan fashion. We worked together, we made some changes, and we passed, I think, which was a really good bill. And I'm hoping that we can move that forward in future years. Of things that did work out, I'm really excited about the sexual assault working group. And again, this is really because survivors of sexual assault in the last year or so have come forward publicly and shared their stories, not only with our committee, obviously, but with the public in general. And this working group will include survivors who will be part of the decisions that are made about our criminal sexual conduct statutes. And so I'm really excited about the work that we'll see out of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Mueller. Thank you for your work this year. And the chair actually tapped you pretty early to reach across the aisle and work with a number of members, Representative Grasso and Representative O'Neill. And I think it really set a very good, strong pace and a good environment for us to produce good public policy here. So thank you so much for your leadership in that regards. Representative Scott.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I kind of regret that I wasn't on public safety. So many nice things being said about you. I don't know where Representative Lesh went, or if he's, I don't know, but I wanted to thank him for his fairness in our committee. And one of the things that I want to speak about is something that should have been in the House bill, leaving the floor that wasn't, and that was shared parenting. And we had the votes at one time, and then some arms were twisted and people backed off of their position. And I think when we talk about the fact that we're thanking people that came in and told their stories, and we should thank those people that have the guts to come and tell their stories in a very public way. And there are people that have been telling these stories on shared parenting and the problems with family law and the family court system for decades. And we heard some very emotional testimony on that bill and on that issue. And I've worked on that issue since I've been in the legislature. We had a bill that, for those of you that don't know, Representative Mary Liz Holberg was never a supporter of it. And we made changes this year, and she said it was a really good bill, and that because it was an issue that affected her family. And so I just want to say that, you know, there was a lot of work put into that bill. The public support for this issue is wide. Shortly after that vote, Carrie Levin had done a piece, and they released it after that vote, and they've never gotten so much feedback over one report as they have on the shared parenting issue. And so I would hope that those of you that didn't support it will take a hard look and listen to your constituents on this issue. Representative Lesh gave a very good floor speech regarding different entities that have stood in the way and blocked reform in the past. And one of those being the folks that are advocates for people that are victims of domestic violence. And I don't think anyone around this table who is for or against shared parenting would ever want to put anyone in harm's way. But sometimes there are groups that stand in the way because they can, and not because it's for the best interests of people of Minnesota moving forward. And we've done reforms in the past that they have opposed, and we have laws now, and domestic violence has not increased. Domestic violence is against the law, and so I would just hope that that people would give that a second look if they voted no. Come to me, and I'm glad to work more on the bill. I really feel like we had it right. We had a lot of protections in that bill. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, and since we were talking about maybe our disappointments and through the session, but I do think that this bill is a decent one, Mr. Chair, and I know this process, as Representative Zerwas said, has been very disappointing at the end to see our work as legislators, even when we have reached agreement with the Senate, like we're supposed to, like we all learned in the textbooks and in our government classes growing up, right? This is the way it's supposed to work. You have a conference committee. What the two sides agree on moves forward. What they don't agree on doesn't. And that's not what happened in this case, and that's a disappointment. But I do think the right priorities are funded here, and we just didn't get some of the policy that we would have liked to have seen. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Scott. You and I have served together for quite a while, and it's probably no big secret that you bring a lot of passion to your work here, and that's a good thing. Thank you, Representative Scott, and you certainly have not been at all shy of approaching folks on the other side of the aisle on difficult issues. You and I spoke on that issue months ago, so I appreciate your approach in that regards. Thank you. Members, there is one or two other members, but we do have Chief Justice Gildea here, who I think, oh, yes. Gildea, yes. Gildea, I'm sorry. And I think yes, please, come forward. We're privileged to have you here with us today.
I understand I'm meant to sit here.
In the middle there is perfect.
Okay.
Welcome to the committee, Judge.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Lori Gildea, and I'm Minnesota's Chief Justice, the administrative head of the judicial branch of our state government. Thank you for allowing me to offer a few brief comments. I believe strongly in the independence of our three branches of government and respect that budgetary decisions are the purview of the executive and legislative branches. But I am here today as the person that the citizens of Minnesota elected to lead the judicial branch of our government. The judicial branch, what we know of as the courts, operate in 105 locations across the state. That means that our geographic footprint is larger than any other part of state government. And our judges and staff play a critical role in protecting public safety, preserving the constitutional rights of Minnesotans, and providing a forum for the orderly and civil resolution of disputes. As I explained in more than 70 meetings with individual legislators and in at least 3 conversations with the governor, the Minnesota judicial branch is facing a series of challenges that threaten our ability to process cases in a timely manner, ensure access to justice, and sustain important innovations. To address these challenges, the branch brought forward a modest, targeted budget request designed to ensure that our courts can continue to meet our constitutional obligation to provide access to justice to all Minnesotans. The proposal before you today funds much of our request. The proposal also funds much of the requests from our justice partners. For those funding decisions, I want to express my gratitude. The proposal, however, does not fully fund the branch's request, and I want to explain just one of the consequences that will flow from that decision. The branch's request reflected the striking need for 2 additional judgeships in the 7th Judicial District. The 7th District includes the communities of Moorhead, St. Cloud, Alexandria, and Little Falls, to name a few. Members, today there are 29 district court judges serving the 7th Judicial District. But according to our judicial weighted caseload data, the 7th District needs 31.5 judges to provide timely and efficient resolution of the disputes in that district. So members, that judicial district, the 7th Judicial District, is more than 2 judges short of the judges it needs to do the work of the people who live in that district. To fill that need, the judicial branch asked for 2 new judgeships. The proposal before you today funds just 1. Members, we cannot continue to ignore the growing need for more judicial resources to serve the citizens of the 7th Judicial District. The biennial cost to fund a judgeship is $879,000. The consequences for not doing so are very real for our justice system, our citizens, and our state. And I thought it best if you heard that from me. The people of Minnesota count on a court system that is accessible, timely, efficient, and secure. We need the legislative and executive branches to fulfill their constitutional duties, to provide the resources necessary to allow us to maintain ours. On behalf of Minnesota's judicial branch and the people of Minnesota, all of whom are our constituents, I urge you to act to preserve a high-functioning court system in Minnesota. The system our citizens expect, the system our citizens deserve, and the system our Constitution commands. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Chief Justice, and thank you for your service. We're privileged to have you with you today. Members, I just want everyone to remember that the House position going into conference aligned with the Chief Justice's appeal. And again, that was not the position of the other body. They came in woefully under that. And the result is what we have before us today, which is still a strong investment, but you've heard from the Chief Justice in terms of not meeting the needs, our constitutionally obligated needs, I would argue. It obviously raises a number of issues in terms of interacting with the other body, but frankly, that also raises issue about revenues in our state and how we raise those, to what extent, and to what extent we distribute those across all of our duties here. But make no mistake, members, this body, all of you were part of a decision that strongly funded our judiciary branch. It's one of the reasons I'm most proud of our bill coming out. I will support this bill, but clearly it still falls short relative to the needs of our judiciary branch of government. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and the members of the conference committee for as long as it lasted anyway, for the chance to work together. And I want to say that I'm very proud of so much that is in the bill. And what I'm most proud of that builds off of what has been discussed earlier, in a way, touched off by the comments of the Chief Justice as well, that we stepped up to the plate. We did so, as you say, Mr. Chair, when the bill was passing through the House in meeting our constitutional obligations and then some. And we were paired up with another chamber that passed a bill that their own chair admitted did not fulfill that obligation. And so what I'm very proud of is that throughout the process, we kept on pushing to make sure that we would do that, and we now have a bill that does that. It does not go as far as we would like, obviously, because we provided more funding. To cite the Chief Justice's example, the bill does not contain that second judge unit. We clearly wanted it to. And I'll point out that it's from a particular part of the state, not a part of the state that I represent, and I was happy to vote to fund that second judgeship. So all in all, what we have is a bill that meets the needs, the public safety and judicial needs of the state in terms of the funding to at least know that we've satisfied our constitutional obligations. I am disappointed that we did not step up to meet a number of the public safety and criminal justice reform needs that we had identified in the course of our committee's work. And I need to stand with so many of those who, as Representative Mueller mentioned, who came in here and not only described their experiences, which turn into general principles and general policies we're attempting to pursue, but who have really human experiences. Just thinking about Logan's Law, and which actually I guess was in the other committee, but I heard from so many constituents and people around the state talking about their experiences of having to try to figure out how to adopt their own child, the person that they're married to, and so much else. And I know that there's a lot of pain that is felt that we could not move forward in a number of these justice reform initiatives. And of course, that leads me then to one in particular that we heard from law enforcement around the state, chiefs and sheriffs and county attorneys and individual officers, line officers saying, hey, the way to make our state safe, the way to make our community safe is to pass gun safety measures of the kind that we brought forward. And of course, we heard from those whose families and lives had been impacted themselves directly by gun violence. So that is another example. And I'll just say that I intend, as I know that my colleagues do as well, to continue to press forward to have our state join the other states, the many, many other states in the country that have these measures, that have taken these steps for their own residents, just as, in fact, we will in a number of the other measures that our House move forward, that we know will, in fact, make our community safer, that will do right by our residents and by the members of our community. But the bottom line is, members, that this bill that we will be voting on when the opportunity arises is one that does, in fact, meet our constitutional obligations, as the version passed by the Senate did not. And that, colleagues, to my mind, is quite a victory. I wish I could define victory in a stronger way, but in fact, that is a victory. Because that's what we were faced with in the course of those negotiations. Mr. Chair, members, thank you for the work this session, and I know that we're going to continue pressing forward to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pinto. I don't know how you were able to be so productive this year, chairing your own committee in another division, and then also covering 2 conference committees at the same time. Whatever it is you're drinking in the morning, I want to know what that is. Thank you for your good and fine work this year, Representative Pinto.
Thank you.
Are there members of the audience in the public that wishes to share some words and thoughts with us? Please come forward. Good evening.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I'm Katie Kramer with the Minnesota Coalition for Battered Women. Today, we are profoundly disappointed by the final outcome of the conference committee. In negotiations, the decision was made to erase funding to support survivors and address domestic violence across the state by cutting funding for domestic abuse transformation programming. Once again, legislators at the Capitol focused only on the needs of a single program in the metro, despite having the opportunity to fund a bill that would recognize the needs of programs working to end domestic violence in greater Minnesota and in culturally specific communities. We thought that when over 10,000 people showed up to the Women's March, that things would be different. We thought that the thousands upon would impact the way our elected officials voted. We thought that when Minnesota's Commissioner of Public Safety cites domestic violence as our state's #1 public safety issue, that would be taken seriously. As a voice for advocates working to end domestic and sexual violence in communities across the state, we asked for one thing: an investment in programs to transform domestic violence behavior. Until there is an investment to change perpetrators' behavior, there will always be another victim. Domestic violence will continue. We will continue to fight for the resources to prevent and end domestic violence in our state, and ask that you, our legislators, do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Members, the House position had a very strong investment in the domestic abuse transformation program. It is one of the disappointing, major disappointing results of negotiating with the Senate. Before I call someone else forward, I'm gonna pull rank here on our nonpartisan staff and basically order them out of the room because I think it's time for them to get some rest and some sleep. Quite honestly, if you could join me in thanking them for that. I'm not sure if I can order them to do anything, but they're not hesitating. Please come forward. Yes. Welcome, Ms. Stark.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. My name's Carly Stark, and I am with the Association of Minnesota Counties and the Minnesota Association of Community Corrections Act Counties. MACAC is an organization that represents 34 counties that provide county-based probation throughout the state. We provide over 70% of the probation services in the state. I'm here to talk about our disappointment with the lack of county probation funding. CCA counties and county probation officer counties, which is another one of the delivery systems, actually provide about 83% of the probation services in the state. Now, the Department of Corrections provides about 17%, and they received a base increase to increase their salaries for health care, but every other probation system in the state did not receive that same base increase. If we are not funded, our caseloads go up, our salaries go down, which increases recidivism and decreases public safety. There's been a lot of talk in this committee about probation reform, and we think it's a very important discussion. For example, the probation cap, we also supported that bill because it is in line with evidence showing those probation is most effective between 3 and 5 years. We cannot reform probation if funding the basic services provided by county probation systems is not a priority. Like I said, if we can't meet our basic needs, we can't make probation better. So we would ask as we go into next session and forward, we consider some kind of system to add a cost of living increase every year for county probation systems. This was one of the biggest priorities for the Association of Minnesota Counties, and we are disappointed that that funding was not included. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stark. Is there anyone else? Please come forward. Evening.
Right. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Lorna Schmidt. I'm the Government Relations Director with the American Heart Association, and I'm here today to thank you for helping to make telephone CPR happen this year. Because of your support, more 911 callers throughout the state will now be able to receive the instruction and support that they need to help someone who is experiencing a cardiac arrest emergency. Individuals like Ashley and Andrew Getty, whom you've heard from earlier this session. Our EMS system will be stronger because of this, and it will save lives. We want to make sure that we give a special thanks to Representative Sandstead, who, though not on this committee, was a relentless champion for this issue, as well as Chair Mariani, co-authors, and the conferees for continuing to elevate this in negotiations this session. This was another provision that, despite broad bipartisan support, was not carried by the Senate, and so we're very grateful that it was carried through in these final discussions. We look forward to seeing this provision passed into law and continuing to work with our partners, including the department, to make sure that is implemented successfully for the safety of Minnesotans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. And members, this was one provision where we are going into conference, we proposed it to be funded out of general fund, discovered that the 911 fund was an eligible source for funding, and so it's being paid through from the special revenue 911 fund, which more than has the ability to do this, and it's consistent with their mission. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify? Good evening.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I know everybody's been here for a long time today and over the last few days. Yes. I just want to, on behalf of the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault, I'm Lindsay Bryce, I'm the Law and Policy Director, and I just want to thank everybody who was involved in the pieces of legislation that passed this year that are part of supporting victims and survivors of sexual assault. There are a number of items that passed this year that are things that MnCASA has been working on for a while, and the one I just want to highlight is position of authority. That's something that MnCASA has been working on for something close to 10 years. I was looking back in files trying to figure out exactly when, which legislative session file that, those conversations started happening, and it's been close to 10 years. So on behalf of MnCASA, on behalf of all of that work particularly, I'd just like to thank everyone here. And then additionally, I'd really like to thank Representative Muller and everybody else who worked so hard to pass the working group. And I'm excited to see what will come of that and what additional progress can be made. Thank you.
Thank you for your work, Ms. Bryce. I've worked on legislation that has taken 10 years, unfortunately, and sometimes you want justice to move a heck of a lot faster than that. But thank you for MnCASA's persistence and your leadership and work with them. And willing to work with all sorts of folks. Representative O'Neill, Representative Damath also had a position of authority, Representative Wozniak.
Absolutely.
I think it speaks to the power of the rightness of that policy change, and I'm looking forward to the work, recommendations from the working group, and even more and larger possibilities for reform.
Thank you. And just one additional thing. I want to be clear, I haven't worked on position of authority for 10 years. My predecessor, Caroline Palmer, who most of you know, has worked on that for many, many years, and so much of that lifting on our behalf was done by her, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward? If not, any other committee members that wishes to share anything? Representative Christensen.
I'll just be very brief, and I just want to say thank you. I know a lot of our folks aren't here. I'm on the Public Safety Committee. But Chair, I'd like to thank you for providing a safe place and providing all of us with the atmosphere and the feeling of safety that we had in here to really work on some important things. I will say as a freshman that I agree with Representative Muller that the human side to the work of this group is amazing. I'm on a few committees, and I do have to say that the testimony that we heard was so moving and so eye-opening so many times. So I too want to thank all those testifiers, and I want to thank everyone in here for allowing that to be able to happen in a safe place, and for us to, to work with each other and to try to create a good public safety policy for the state of Minnesota. So thank you to everyone, and this was my favorite committee, so thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Representative Christensen. It's been a humbling experience and a learning experience for me as well. Members, we'll see each other hopefully soon on the House floor, and we'll have more of this, no doubt, both the pros and the cons being shared at that time. I look forward to that. I look forward to passing this bill. And so, members, with that, I'm going to adjourn this joint committee hearing.